What's up, QAA listeners?
The fun games have begun.
I found a way to connect to the internet. I'm sorry, boy. Welcome, listener, to chapter 166 of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, the Gang's All Here episode. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky,
Annie Kelly,
Julian Field,
Liv Agar,
and Travis View.
This week, we wanted to get the whole damn gang right back together to just kind of chat about a variety of things that have come up. It feels like the perfect week for a bunch of little news things and a lot of conversation. So I guess we'll be getting out the popcorn, and you can eat these little kernels one by one, QAnon style. And by the way, welcome everybody. How's everyone doing?
doing good. Glad to be back. Glad to be back riffing on the pod with everybody.
Yeah, I didn't even really have much to add to this week. I just missed you all so much.
Yeah, and I'm running on fumes. We had two video game remasters released last night at midnight.
Okay.
You had the GTA trilogy and Skyrim for the 11th time, and so
Every time Skyrim comes out, you have to buy it. I am $10,000 in debt because of my Skyrim purchases.
Is this just the same game over and over? Or do you mean like, I don't know, like expansion packs or stuff like that?
Annie, that's spoken like someone who has not played the Monkey Paw Quest 12 times.
it's the Golden Claw, Julian. Get it right. Which I have played like 24 times because I always boot up Skyrim and I'm like, oh boy, a beautiful world. Oh, a little bit better graphics this time. I do the Golden Claw quest and I'm like, I have played all of this. I have played this
what am I
for
doing?
years and years and years, and I've become depressed and I quit the game. First I try to install some mods, I break the game, and then I quit.
Nice.
So we've been doing a lot of productive things, like the Golden Claw.
Oh, it was Travis's birthday, too. He doesn't like to mention that kind of stuff, but it's definitely his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Travis.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
I saw today a meme where Smooth Travis was integrated into the pantheon of ascended masters around, and it was good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about all these legitimately awful things that are popping up in the news. And curious things.
So we're going to kick off right away with a mass casualty event, this lighthearted comedy podcast. So yeah, we're going to talk about the horrible events at the Astroworld Music Festival, which Travis Scott, the rapper, performed. So what happened was that on November 5th, Travis Scott took to the stage at the Astroworld Festival. This resulted in a crowd crush incident that resulted in 8 deaths and many more injuries. Scott performed for 37 minutes, and this was reportedly just a hellish, chaotic time for the people who were pressed by the thousands of bodies who were rushing the stage. According to reports, some fans climbed speaker riggings to escape the crush. Some fans screamed for medical help and even carried unconscious bodies away from the main crowd. Some waved their hands to attract Scott's attention, but these efforts were initially unsuccessful. One video from the scene shows fans chanting, "Stop the show," as Scott continues performing.
Stop the show! 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 Stop the show!
Nightmare situation. So the 8 fatalities from the incident range in ages from 14 to 27. 25 others were evacuated to local hospitals, including 11 people found in a state of cardiac arrest. Several victims remained in critical condition at local hospitals for days for various injuries, including a 9-year-old in a medically induced coma after being trampled. So unimaginably just horrific, hellish, arguably caused by serious negligence from the event organizers. I mean, hopefully there are lawsuits. There's going to be an investigation, so I hope we get a better handle of exactly what went so horribly wrong, because and hopefully the fallout results in like better safety procedures as venues, so nobody else, including like literal children, die because they went to a concert. But unfortunately, on many parts of social media, did not lead to a sober discussion of the importance of venue security. Rather, it led to speculation that Travis Scott was taking part in some sort of satanic or occult ritual that led to these deaths. For example, here's one podcaster's take on that incident.
And many people for a long time have associated Travis Scott with the Illuminati, right? Freemasonry, Satanism, Luciferianism, there's a million names, but it's all really the same face, right? And the way that this takes place, this Kabbalah magic, this witchcraft, is in a ritualistic form.
I saw a lot of people claim that the stage at the event was like in the form of an inverted cross that went to a portal to hell. And of course, they pointed out a lot of weird imagery at concerts, as there are at any high production value concerts. That's the idea, to create sort of otherworldly weird experience. So, so Satanic Panic, never left us. It started with, the Puritans in New England. It just never, ever stopped.
There were tons of videos going around on TikTok and Instagram of, people just kind of feeding these conspiracy theories. There was one I saw where people were claiming that the 6 hours leading up to the show, that there was a frequency being played over the speakers that were designed to instill fear and sort of like whip the crowd up. It was amazing to see all of the conspiracies just instantly sort of flood, social media.
Yeah. I saw InfoWars basically, opening a segment with a teenager who was there, who was previously a Travis Scott fan, but now decided not only is he satanic, but also like, I'm going to bake this. And so InfoWars was just like showing her video basically.
And traumatized teens as well, presumably, if she was there. Like, I mean, I don't want to, I know it's no surprise to anyone, InfoWars doing something unethical, but that does just strike me as so unethical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable. It can't just be that, like, this was a poorly organized concert where Travis Scott was an idiot and wanted people to rush the stage, and the event organizers saw the people there as, like, cattle and didn't really care about them. Mm-hmm. There has to be some secret, plan behind it that has to be baked in literally everything. I guess at least in this case, they tried, like, Travis Scott is using satanic imagery-ish, like, to be edgy.
Yeah.
So but it doesn't, like, regardless of that, this would have happened.
But that's I mean, that's the trend, right? I mean, Playboi Carti put out a whole album where the whole thing was that he was a vampire.
Yeah.
He did the photo shoot, he had the fangs and
the Vamp Anthem is one of the songs.
Yeah, Vamp Anthem. Yeah, Carti.
I mean, Lil Nas X also, of course, intentionally tried to provoke people who are prone to satanic panic in a variety of ways.
One thing it really reminded me of, going back to terrible crowd crush in the UK, was the Hillsborough tragedy. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, this was in 1989, where 96 people at a football stadium were, in essentially the same way, hemmed in up against barriers. There were far too many of them, and the police and venue officials kept on putting more and more of them in. And it was, just a horrible tragedy. But there was another sort of conspiracy going on there where people tried to blame the crowd essentially for what had happened, and the Sun and all these tabloid newspapers were spreading rumors that they'd all been drunk, including some of the children that had died, and had been urinating on dead bodies and stuff, all of which turned out not to be true. And this was kind of part of a central police cover-up to cover up their own culpability essentially. But it is something that is that happens a lot with crowd crushes, essentially, is that people don't know. There's too many people hemmed in, and so the people on the outside simply don't know what's happening on the inside. And so, even if people were kind of, pushing and shoving and climbing on ambulances and stuff like that, again, I kind of want to be hesitant about saying that their behavior was the problem in any way, because it does kind of feel like they should never have been in that situation to be climbing up ambulances.
No, yeah, it was a chaotic scene, and when you're dealing with like tens of thousands of people in an open field, I mean, this is, again, I think falls on the shoulders of the event organizers to be able to safely corral that many people and make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen. Coincidentally, my daughter is studying The Crucible in school at the moment.
What a perfect time for it.
Arthur Miller, of course, wrote that play about the Salem witch trials as an allegory for McCarthyism to suggest, well, okay, so in the first European settlers of America were paranoid and thought that there was Satan behind everything, and we're kind of doing that now with McCarthyism and the hunt for communists. When I feel like the real lesson should be is that the European settlers of America were paranoid about Satan now and forever. And this is just the way it's always been. This is just the way, the lens they view the world. And they'll always be finding someone to cry occultism or Satanism towards.
Yeah, there was something else that I noticed about the Astroworld story, which was that almost immediately, before there were even really any details out, TMZ reported security at the concert saying that they had been injected with something, some kind of drug or something. I found a quote from TMZ. The Houston PD's chief, Troy Finner, just confirmed what we'd been told, namely that at least one person had been injected with something via needle, and there may well have been more. Chief Finner said a security guard working the event felt a prick in his neck by an unknown assailant while he was trying to restrain a citizen, and he quickly fell unconscious. Finner says the guard was revived by use of Narcan, and that medical personnel did indeed see something on his neck that indicated he'd been stabbed with a syringe. Now, I was kind of naturally a little skeptical about this, not least because of what I was talking about with Hillsborough and security guards sort of trying to evade responsibility. And it turns out I was right to be. Later updates had the police chief saying that this was bad information and that security guard was just punched, not injected with anything. But the story immediately grabbed my attention because it seemed to mirror similar rumours that are going around the UK at the minute, that there's an epidemic of young people in nightclubs being injected with unknown mind-altering drugs. The most recent statistics I could find on this had it at about 166 reports of this happening all across the country, which were from mid-October, so it's probably a lot more by now. And the phenomenon's being called needle spiking in the press.
I was going to ask, is this just like a kind of more hardcore version of the opening a can of beans on your front stoop thing that's been going around as well?
Wait, what is that?
Yeah, there's been a rash of bean attacks or something, and they've even come up with a name for it. And it's essentially just people opening tin cans on people's stoops, and they take photos and they go look, it happened again. It's a rash throughout the city.
Bean attacks. Oh my god.
That's a harmless prank. I wish people would get back to those kind of pranks, Can of beans, a flaming bag of feces, it's annoying, but nobody's getting hurt.
Are people starting to bake it though? Are they saying, if you have beans on your porch, this means that, you're going to be burglarized or trafficked or whatever?
The main theory was not human trafficking. It was, if we pour a can of beans on your front stoop and it isn't cleaned up in a few days, we know you're not home, and so we can rob your place. Yeah. Neighbors are baffled as UK police search for baked bean vandal. So, the victims are understandably distressed by this unacceptable behavior, Surrey police wrote in a Facebook post. So I hope someone spills the beans on who it might be, one user posted. Okay, well, the UK is great in general, but yeah, let's play this clip.
Great stuff. Fake island.
It's terrifying. When I was growing up, I was almost in and out of consciousness. That point forwards, my memory is gone. They were effectively saying, it seems as if you've been spiked.
Sarah and Zara say they were spiked by needles on a night out, and they're not the only ones. More than 20 young women from across the country have shared their experiences with Sky News. Students have called it a spiking outbreak. Groups across the country are organising nightclub boycotts, and a petition calling on them to do more has reached over 100,000 signatures.
We've heard from a number of young women in Scotland, Manchester, Cardiff and Liverpool who claimed they've been spiked by injection on a night out.
The gap in the middle, I've got no memory. It's not a blur, it's not a, this could have happened, but I don't remember. It's a complete blackout.
Apparently when I was growing up, I was almost in and out of consciousness instantly, which is just strange. It's really out of character. And then I just started apparently screaming, which I don't remember.
And then the next morning I woke up obviously with this memory loss, but with a really sharp pain in my leg.
My hand it was kind of a developing bruise at this point, it wasn't fully developed, but it had like a mark on it, and the bruise was just kind of coming out, and it got darker over the process of the next few days.
I moved my hand, and then there was a little mini pinprick on my thigh, and I thought, well, that's where all the pain is. It's all shooting to that one little epicenter of pain. And then I kind of did put two and two together, and I thought, I've lost my memory, my leg is really sore, and there's a pinprick wound. And I just thought, it's that. As horrible as it is to admit it, and I was terrified to even admit it.
It just makes me feel really, really sick, and just really angry as well.
Who goes around with a bunch of needles in their pocket, goes to the nightclub,
Right. I mean, I want to tread really carefully here, because I believe those girls when they say that they have been spiked with something.
Yeah.
And I think they're really brave to come forward with their story. I've had to go with a friend to the police before when their drink was spiked at a club, so I know firsthand just how harrowing and traumatic the entire experience can be. But having said that, I'm not convinced that these spikings are happening via injections in this case. It's possible to me that it could have initially been injections where the first numerous incidents of this were reported, which as far as I can tell was in Nottingham initially. And it's worth noting that 2 arrests have been made there, but very little detail other than that has been released to the press, so essentially we don't know if they were injecting people. But an organised yet remarkably well-hidden gang of spikers working across the country together all at once just doesn't really make sense to me. For one thing, it seems like a really difficult thing to do. Spiking people's drinks is actually a lot more common than people assume, but nearly always the substance in question is just more or stronger alcohol than the victim thinks is in there. Now, that's not less serious by any means. It actually has the exact same effect of incapacitating someone very quickly. And it will pretty much always be written off by the police as just someone who can't handle their drink. So from the spiker's point of view, it's very low risk. By contrast, spiking someone with a needle involves sneaking a syringe into the club, presumably being able to find a vein in a crowded, poorly lit room, and injecting them undetected. It's essentially spiking someone on the hardest mode you can imagine. And it's not really clear for what purpose. As far as I can tell, there's been no crimes after the person's been spiked reported. John Slaughter, a forensic toxicologist at a leading bioanalysis and toxicology laboratory, also said this in an interview for Full Fact, a fact-checking website.
If someone is jabbed with a syringe, then the reflex action is going to be to move away within a second or two. The opportunity for someone to actually inject enough drug from that syringe to have the effect, I would think, is fairly low. I'm not saying it's absolutely impossible. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it's unlikely.
Yeah, I'm choosing to believe that that this is unlikely, because if we've got assaulters going around with needles injecting some like crazy drug into people's veins like in the club, then we're in like Judge Dredd territory, and I really don't know like how we come back from that.
Yeah, people like baking their experiences, and especially like, I mean, in a lot of these cases where it's like a genuinely traumatic experience, like if it's very easy, if you see that on the news, you're like, maybe that happened to me.
This reads a bit like razor blades in the candy on Halloween, like just a recurring scare, a bit like a satanic panic, but just that scare of my child is out there in this kind of cursed fallen world, and like what could happen to them. Sickos, what have they invented this time,
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And I thought, like, particularly with this very strange coincidence of the Astroworld story, the rumours of a security guard being injected, I almost started to wonder if needle spiking was becoming something of a folk demon, like a story that might have its roots in factual events, but becomes fantastical and omnipresent as a way to express people's unspoken fears and anxieties. It hardly seems coincidental to me, for one thing, that this story is taking off at the exact time more people are talking about a new vaccine than ever. Perhaps even if you're like not anti-vax in the slightest, these kind of natural fears that people have about allowing something into your body, something which could potentially change you, relinquishing your control in that way, are kind of becoming reformulated or like expressed through this story.
Or Annie is wandering around trying to give people the vaccine the best way she knows.
I've gone vigilante.
And another thing is, like, there were genuinely people I saw on Twitter, like right-wing people who were like, these people are passing out. It's probably because of the vaccine.
Yeah.
They're having cardiac arrests because of the heart symptoms. So, I would imagine that's partially in relation to the syringe story, but just in general, like if you're anti-vax and you want to bake something, all of this has to be connected. And I would imagine that in the UK context, that's probably also related.
Oh, they are going wild with it. Yeah, I sort of didn't bring that up because I kind of wanted to talk about the heart of the story. But yeah, as you can imagine, they are going absolutely nuts for this story.
I mean, that's what like all of this is. It's just people just punching up reality in one sense or another. Like it's not enough that there's many innocent deaths due to negligence. You need to punch it up so that there's a narrative about like Satanism and Travis Scott performing some kind of occultish ritual that makes it happen. It's not enough that a cop was just like punched in line of duty. It's like let's punch it up. Let's give it a little bit of panache for the script, right, in our minds, because reality is just too mundane and horrifying for us to process it as it is. We need a little color, so we color it every day.
Yeah, they need to kind of transform it into spiritual warfare of some kind, right? Or like kind of battle between good and evil in order to like process just horrible avoidable deaths of people who were all younger than me, like all very young.
It can't just be like the profit motive working in tandem with the logistics of the people organizing it and their own greed. And that, because that's too horrifying. People being ground up in the margins of like a festival budget, essentially. Yeah. That's too, and it's boring. And it's depressing.
People understand at some level that like they are being pushed around by these larger forces that they can't control. But it's just the idea that like, oh, it's just this organizing company that didn't care enough to do security is like, that's not fun. I want to be pushed around by the fucking devil. That's what actually happened.
I mean, it doesn't help that like, the concert is very visually impressive, very narrative. And so you are already in a fantasy world where you're playing with like satanic stuff and then you're being choked to death in a pit. Like that fucking sucks. That is hell. It is not literal hell. And it is still wrong for the Daily Caller to release an article that says Astro World Fallout, exorcists and demonologists break down the satanic influence at Travis Scott's deadly concert. They
got the top demonologists on the
case. Jack Greenberg, by the way, wrote this. Thank you, Jack, you absolute legend. I wanted to read a couple passages, but it kind of opens by mentioning that this whole article is based on social media users on Twitter and TikTok sharing videos and theories speculating that, quote, the concert from hell resulted from demonic activity. So, as a reporter working for Tucker Carlson, it's important to follow up on just like random people screaming stuff online. And then they start to kind of like read stuff off, like, oh, there was the tagline, see you on the other side. There was the poster. There's the open your eyes to a whole new universe. There's a demon face on an album cover or something. And then they've actually interviewed this guy called Father John Sada, who's one of like I looked into him. He's like one of the 100 current exorcists practicing in the United States that are approved by the Pope himself and that visit the Vatican and have like reunions together to discuss new technology and stuff.
That is fucking awesome.
That's such a fun job. You just play pretend like I am exercising you. Give me $10,000.
Quote, says Father John Sada, quote, the imagery Travis Scott projects, whether he does it for commercial reasons or intentionally, it certainly projects satanic imagery and satanic practice. No question. He is at the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg in Pennsylvania. And he continued to say, quote, it's possible Travis Scott summoned demons, but it's pure speculation. Even if he summoned demons unwillingly, he opened a door and they just took advantage of it. The Harrisburg exorcist also pointed to reports that some festival attendees were, quote, needle spiked with opioids such as ketamine or fentanyl. Quote, whoever was going around sticking needles into people was definitely under demonic influence, maybe even possessed, he told the Daily Caller. And then they just have people's crazy tweets. They just have literally like the shit that we can't even use on our show because it would look like we're just cherry picking the craziest people on the internet. That's what the Daily Caller has just sitting at the bottom of the article with no other conclusion. The text is done before you just get fed people, including a man, by the way. The first quote is by a man who goes on Twitter by Shockadelicos.
This is that's a regular title. I don't understand. That's my alt, actually. Sorry.
Seems like they're using the word Holocaust in there somewhere.
I didn't. Okay, cut that out. Actually.
Nope.
Pick up on that.
Too late.
Not getting
Too late.
cut out now.
Another Balkan mistake by the Serb Liv Agar.
Look, it happens.
But like, this is insane. I mean, it is like it's like a plot to like a Blumhouse movie that like a rapper unwittingly like opens a portal to hell at the festival, and 5 friends, must escape. It's just.
Also, the whole premise of the article is like, it would be like, we asked like the world's leading expert in gremlins to see if this was gremlin related. It's like, and we confirmed it is in fact a gremlin related incident. Confirmed.
I just think it's really sad that, no one ever wants to talk to Catholics about the finer point of theology. It's always just about the demon stuff.
My favorite is that the Daily Caller writer, Jack Greenberg, who looks exactly what you'd think. Like, he looks like if you stretched Ben Shapiro slightly in like Photoshop. And he's listed here as Texas native, aspiring writer, contributor, and reporter. Hey, one day maybe, huh?
I believe in you, King.
Yeah. He's going to make those books where it's like a raptor had sex with Satan.
But it just kind of starts off with like the first 2 chapters, and then the rest are all just random tweets. It's like, I couldn't be bothered.
Tweets and illustrations. But I mean, there's something weird about this idea just from, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, that mere imagery alone can summon, these dark evil forces. It's like, well, we've got like pictures of God and Jesus all around, and you don't see like, amazing miracles happening under a big, printout of Jesus, or, I guess what you would consider, positive religious imagery.
But they do believe that miracles like happen every day.
Yeah.
They feel the force of the divine in their everyday lives. So that's like a normal thing for them. Like when things go well, they attribute that to divine forces. So it makes sense that when things go horribly, they would attribute that to demonic forces.
Yeah, that
You
makes
ever
sense.
you ever seen anyone die at an Enya concert where they show Ann Getty's photos in the background? I don't think so.
No.
That's a beautiful experience. It's pacifistic. Nobody's injecting each other with drugs, and Enya never gets turned. She never tells her audience to just go wild.
Anyway, it's a fucking horrible event, and my heart goes out to everybody that was there, especially the people who were injured or lost their lives. I just read there's a Reuters article that another person who was severely injured at the concert has passed away. So the death toll has now risen to 9.
Yeah. And like, let's be clear, like Travis Scott has a hand in organizing these things as well and running all of this as well.
He's like one of the event coordinators. I mean,
Every
it's his
person
thing.
making money that had a say or was in the room while logistics were figured out or signed any of these contracts has blood on their hands, in my opinion. And it's because they are literally cutting things so close to the margin that they're like, definitely things will go bad. Like we're used to having ambulances come and pick people up who pass out. And so then, like, what's the difference between, a pile of unconscious people, which might happen more frequently at his events, and he kind of has talked about that, and they pass it around as, like, proof that he does demonic shit and loves to, hurt his fans. But the truth is, like, it's hard to figure out if someone's dead or passed out. And in this case, yeah, it just got out of hand, and they were streaming it too. There's a feature of that, the idea that it's also a live stream that you can't really stop it. It's like, oh, Mom, this is an online game, like you can't pause. And so the guy ignoring the fan who was begging him was part of like that big live stream crew that they apparently set up that made these corrals. So there's something I think about like, the idea of, well, no, I mean the whole live stream is fucked if we have to stop the concert. The more and more kind of pressure to have things keep going, even if they get bad.
Yeah, the next big thing I want to talk about is the ongoing occupation in Dallas from the QAnon cult Negative 48. I'm sure you've seen this talked
occupation,
about.
it's more like a happening. They're not like Nazi troops marching into Paris.
Well, it's it's Occupy, like
Occupy, right? Occupy JFK.
It's a sit-in.
It's a sit-in. It's a classic 60s.
Yeah, your
sit-in.
classic sit-in.
That's right. But they're awaiting
Occupy
the return
deep state.
of a man who's been dead for decades. So yeah, we recently discussed the weird QAnon cult Negative 48, which gathered in Dallas to await the return of JFK Sr. and Jr., the duo. Now, this is a really troubling development, I think, because its leader, Michael Protzman, has a very dedicated following of people who just eat up all of the nonsense that he spews out. For example, during a live-streamed indoor gathering with Protzman and some of his followers, Protzman claimed that Elvis Presley played the keyboard at the recent Rolling Stones concert in Dallas.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I did ask him, was it Elvis on the keyboard? And he just smiled. Yes. Yes. And we asked him if he was the drummer.
So at the Rolling Stones concert, Elvis was in the building.
See, all of his fans just go wild. Confirmed. Elvis is alive and still performing.
And performing with the Rolling Stones.
That's right.
This is just like a geriatric cult of a dying culture where it's like there's no one knew. It's just like all your favorites that died, they're still here.
Yeah.
And they're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it gets even better than that, according to Protzman. The Rolling Stones concert also featured Prince and Aaliyah, who, according to him, appeared during a performance of the song Gimme Shelter.
Okay. That's a nice story.
Prince was playing drums, and Heels Up Harris, being played by Aaliyah, was the backup singer that walked right down the runway all the way to the front and was featured in the show, in the song. Evil, it's only a shot away. It's only a shot away, because ITS is 48, evil is 48. That's why I'm negative 48.
So he was doing a little freestyle gematria there at the end, trying to tie everything together.
So are we all moving to gematria now because we found out that being yelled at like 1,800 times has had an effect?
Yeah, fine.
Yep.
If pronouncing it right.
Yeah, we don't like being yelled at.
You're right.
Stop yelling at us about us saying gematria, gematria.
I mean, I guess if there is one band that is going to bring other, deceased musicians back from the dead, it is going to be the Rolling Stones, because they've kept Mick Jagger alive through witchcraft, I'm sure, for probably the last 15, 20 years, maybe.
The inclusion of Aaliyah does strike me as quite confusing. Are a lot of his followers a big fan of Aaliyah? I sort of get, Elvis Presley and JFK Jr. and I sort of understand, even Prince to a certain extent, that's sort of their generation. But Aaliyah?
When Aaliyah died, there were tons of conspiracy theories circulating around her death. So I mean, it does seem a little bit sort of out of character for the cast of musicians that you would sort of place at this event, but I think maybe because Aaliyah she died really young, some people claim that she died under, mysterious circumstances, I believe it was a plane crash.
Plane crash.
And so, much like, look, any famous person that dies in a plane crash is fair game, I think, for the QAnon community.
Yeah.
Right.
May I interest you in a side note that in this realm of gematria, I suppose, Tommy Numbers, obviously our best boy, the one we all love and know, the best at the game. And I wanted to play you a quick, very recent clip from October 29th in which Tommy bakes his meal at a restaurant. So I just wanted to show you how far.
So to clarify, it's not him, getting the ingredients out, sort of measuring
literally
them.
baking.
It's
interpreting the special secret meaning of.
He's interpreting the way that his meal was served.
Well, first of all, it's a barbecue. So there are baked beans. So I suppose there was some baking, but it wasn't done by him. So now he's looking down at his plate, and he's about to bake both the food, the words of his food, and also the name of the smokehouse, I guess, that he's at.
Good evening, everyone. It's Tom Sidney Bushnell, aka Numbers, here at Sight Club. So, I'm being treated to this wonderful meal at this wonderful steakhouse, and this is the name of it. So, it's Oaked Handcrafted Barbecue. So, Oak is 27, add the apostrophe, that's 133, and then add D, which is 4, takes you to 164, comes to the mothership, comes to Thomas Apostle, Mark the Apostle, comes to my buddy Jack Edward Aiken Kidd. Handcrafted is 84, Arizona, Million, Sunday. Barbecue's 21 of, add those together comes to 105, comes to Savior, comes to Internet. But you add them all together comes to 269, which is Trump Tower, 169, The Great Awakening, Thomas Bushnell, plus Time Machine, which is 100, or Reversal, or The Reset, or The Exchange, and that all comes to 269. So 269, Trump Tower, plus Time Machine. It also comes to the third parallel, so 269 comes to the third parallel. So this is awesome. Check it out. I'll put the link in below so people can check it out. And Dallas, Texas. Dallas is 49 if I remember rightly, and then Texas is 69. That comes to 118, comes to The Awakening, The Storm, The Silver, The Matrix. So have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Travis is losing it.
Travis is losing his mind. I can see him. I can see him turning into one of the like seaweed creatures at the bottom of the ocean in The Little Mermaid. Okay, so he's got the Apostles. He's got the Mothership. He's got Trump Tower. He's got the Great Awakening. He's got what else? What else did he have in there? I mean,
he's got ribs. He's got chicken. He's got brisket. He's got baked
and this
beans.
motherfucker is eating better than anybody who's watching his videos. Like, this is such a fucking slap in the face. He's like, yeah well, look at, we've got all of this symbolism in this, very expensive, decadent meal that I'm about to enjoy. Looks fantastic. I'm going to be very full. My belly will be very full, and it will allow me to, put together some more numbers for you, AKA numbers. Anytime he says that, when he's like, AKA numbers, I'm like, this is a person who would spell numbers with like a 3.
Tommy, I'm really enjoying the meal, but could you just shut the fuck up while we eat our burgers? This is every day you do this 3 times a day with anything I cook you. I'm leaving, Tommy.
It's me or the numbers, Tommy.
It's me.
How strange that your plate of rice, your ribs, your coleslaw, your baked beans, how weird that it all adds up to Trump and QAnon and the Great Awakening and aliens. Like,
and then he's like,
fantastic for you.
I'll leave a link to this fucking steak place if you enjoyed these numbers. Like, you should come here and eat.
You should come here and eat and read the number. Yeah, you might get a good plate. Somebody goes in there they're like, I baked my meal and like all I got is like I'm down like $45. Like, I don't know.
There's like 800 British people in there every night counting their beans. But yeah, so that just a kind of side note in the middle of Travis's story about this guy, because these are the kinds of people that will populate what we're about to learn about, which is the compound, the numbers compound. Tommy will be the custodian.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, I've always been concerned about the way they infuse every little thing with a heavy amount of meaning, because it's really a way to disassociate from any sort of shared reality or consciousness. I mean, they're entering the metaverse without a VR headset. They're already there. So first of all, I want to thank Karma 2021 for putting those clips up. So I have no idea why anyone would listen to this madman, but some of them are really, really dedicated. So even a week after JFK Jr. was a no-show on November 2nd, a small number of true believers still gathered in Dallas. Reporter Stephen Monticelli even recorded a group of -48 followers singing "Take Me Home, Country Roads," except they replaced the line "West Virginia" with "Daily Plaza."
He later tweeted that they also replaced Mountain Mama with Dealey Plaza, so they were kind of freestyling.
It's also been reported that a rapper known as Prime Minister, that's Prime with a Y, Pryme,
of course,
has offered the use of a property near Dallas so they can have a permanent headquarters in the Promised Land, which is, of course, Dallas, because that's where JFK was assassinated. So yeah, we're getting into weird. Of course, this is like the ultimate conspiracy cult, where the spot where JFK was assassinated is a holy spot, and they must gather around and sing and occupy this general area until he returns, apparently.
You know, Prime Minister also has been in videos interviewing Juan O'Savin as well. So they're all like buddies online. It's unclear whether he has a ton of money to do this or whatever, but he does have some pretty good rap songs about how God is all.
Extremely cool rap name, by the way. Just like you hear about Canadian politics once, and you're like, that Prime Minister. That sounds fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. But what if the I was a Y? That's even cooler.
I think he's playing on it because for him it's like a ministry, right?
Oh,
like Prime Minister.
Nice.
He's like preaching the truth.
No, I also my also first thought was like just like the political position, but I guess he probably does mean it in a religious sense. But
so, do you want to hear a little bit of the song? Just a little snip.
Of course.
Yeah.
Gave his life, paid the price, my King is Christ, extraordinary. Changed my life, made me right, renewed my mind, it's extraordinary. Listen, my God is worthy, my soul was dirty, that birdie 30, that girly purdy, I cried, he heard me, I don't deserve it. My father gates looking awfully pearly, I transgressed, but I'm transformed. Storm came, but I stand strong. That other ground, that sinking sand, so he the only thing that I stand on. Name one thing that he don't know, one thing that he can't do. Name one soul that he can't save, one thing he said that ain't true.
Travis, before we move on, can you tell us what the hell these tweets are that you've put in the document here by Hot Tub Twin?
Yeah, so Hot Tub Twin is one of a handful of Twitter users who have been sort of listening to the Negative 48 live chat, and this seems to be like one of the main ways that the group communicates. There are these live chats that on Telegram that get thousands of listeners, and when people chime in, I listen to like one of them for hours, and God bless anyone who actually does that regularly because they are exhausting to listen to. But Hot Tub Twin reports that during one of these live chats, one of the moderators in the Dallas channel's live chats revealed yesterday that the Washington Monument is having sex with a White House building every noon and therefore must be torn down. All right, that's just the start of the sentence.
What, every noon it just like there's that sun at the top at the apex, time to go fuck the White House again.
Fine as hell, that sexy ass building.
In like the hottest midday sun.
So wait, is it like a forgive me if this is like really ignorant, I don't really know DC architecture that well, but is it something to do with the shadow? That they're saying that like the shadow touches the White House and that's like that's sexually symbolic?
The Washington Monument is right across from the White House, so maybe the shadow points provocatively towards the White House. I mean, I could not.
Or
maybe.
it kind of loosens up like the Pink Panther, and then it just kind of comes off, and it goes over there and just pokes its head through the front door of the White House. No matter how much cool Western culture we build and come up with, we always have like the penises of ancient Egyptians threatening our buildings.
So Hot Tub Twin writes on Twitter that this moderator on this live chat says that the U.S., UK, and Canada will become one country once JFK Jr. returns.
That's back-to-back bangers on that.
Yeah, so
they took him out because he was trying to do that, yeah.
It's very strange. This is very weird globalist idea. It sounds like something like Jerome Corsi would like freak out about. It's like they're trying to make the U.S., UK, and Canada a single country or something.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense because if you worship 1776, you worship your independence from the British. You don't want to be the fuck. Plus, last time the UK entered into any kind of coalition, they really didn't make the best of it. So I don't think anyone wants to invite them over anymore.
Yeah, they'll just leave beans on your porch.
Hey, it looks like Canada's not home. Those beans have been sitting on its porch for. Let's go get them. Let's annex it.
Hot Tub Twin goes on to say, guy dials in. He's about to lose his home in foreclosure and asks how long the wait until JFK Jr. returns. Mod says the home he's losing, he's not really losing because it's a movie. Also says he's losing the home to save the children, but then says it's still a movie. The group concurs.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, all of this. I mean, it's like this kind of stuff. Like I also heard on the live chat. I can't obviously confirm this stuff without the audio, but it sounds plausible. And yeah, it's more of the same, where people who are like losing stuff, or they're in tumultuous times, and so they look to this community, this instant, easy community to enter for answers, and it's disastrous.
Yeah. Extremely revealing, right? It's literally a movie, so you don't have to worry about anything. I don't understand how that could possibly be comforting, but I guess if you don't have anything, then some random guy telling you that you're in a movie, I guess you don't think about it, which is tragic.
Yeah, I guess you're like, movies have happy endings, so like this will all, whoever's the screenwriter is gonna work something out for me, like,
right?
Yeah.
Or like it's not real. But then like, are we in the Matrix or something? I wonder what the extended logic of that is.
But then you're experiencing like the very real effect of like getting served the papers and going through the sort of legal process of losing your house. And it's like, what, from now on when he gets that stuff, is he like, these are all props. It's all props.
Just kind of spinning around the room, making the Jim from The Office face, trying to find the camera.
In other news, the Durham investigation, which, if you'll remember, was one of the last things that Q posted on 8chan before going offline seemingly permanently, was just one word, Durham. And he was referring, of course, to John Durham, who was tasked by Bill Barr to look into the origins of the Russia investigation into Donald Trump's campaign. And surprisingly, I think to everybody, he's actually made a couple arrests. There was the one guy who altered an email to say that Carter Page had not been an intelligence asset in the past for the FBI. There was the lawyer, Michael Sussman. And now he has arrested one of the sources for the Steele dossier, a guy named Igor Danchenko. And he's been charged with 5 counts of lying to the FBI about the nature of his sources that he provided to Steele.
If you've listened to the Lost episodes, this is a real throwback, because Jake has the same level of excitement on his face, and honestly, he was right all along. There was something fishy.
No, I'm
surprised.
That this has gone anywhere. And just like a lot of this shit, a lot of this stuff is process crime. Apparently the sort of gist of the allegations are that Igor Danchenko, who passed information along to Christopher Steele, was not forthright in the fact that, at least the Durham indictment alleges, that some of the information that he passed on to Christopher Steele that ended up in the dossier itself, which was published by BuzzFeed, came from a longtime Democratic operative named Charles Dolan Jr., who had worked on Bill Clinton's campaign, and he worked on Hillary Clinton's first campaign and volunteered on her 2016 campaign. And basically, the evidence in the indictment is that information that was conveyed in emails to Igor Danchenko appeared almost word for word, very similar sentiment in what ended up in the Steele dossier. And Igor, when interviewed by the FBI, said that, his source was, he did not mention that his source was Dolan. So, I mean, it's like really it's pretty boring shit. I think that a lot of people in the QAnon world are pretty excited about it, but like in the Matrix did a whole segment on it where he's like, boom, 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 the dominoes are falling, the walls are closing in. And it's like, they're not even just happy that, okay, hey, like this guy that we said was going to bring the whole thing down has exposed a couple kind of, small time sort of, offenses, in digging into this dossier and the investigation at large. It's that, oh, well, this means that the big one is about to come. It's like, it's not enough that, hey, he actually produced, believed to be seen whether it goes anywhere,
Do you think this means that we can no longer enjoy Tom Arnold's P-tape TV show? Will they have to do they have to take that off streaming?
There's stuff about that in the indictment too. Basically, that was based on rumors from staff, and that that later, when asked about it, they said that nobody said anything about a P-tape. They were just literally showing, giving a tour and showing people the presidential suite, and so it brings into question, just exactly how accurate that PP tape claim is.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't do, and I want to be clear.
I'm going to believe that's my QAnon.
Yeah.
I believe P-tape.
She's out.
It does not cast any doubt or it does not invalidate the FBI's reasoning for opening the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. That happened long before this.
Yeah, the investigation was opened because Papadopoulos claimed that he heard that the Russians had dirt on Trump, and this was related to an Australian diplomat, and this was related to the FBI, and also that combined with the Russian meddling was the basis for the investigation.
Yeah, this really only has to do with the FISA warrant that they applied for to get on Carter Page, which the Steele dossier was used in some, sort of corroborating factor to open those FISA warrants. So that's really only what this is about. And naturally, I think I haven't seen too many people, too many of your average QAnon believers sort of really getting super excited about this, because they're way beyond Spygate at this point. They are JFK Jr. is going to return. Trump is the secret president. Biden is only presides over America, the corporation. They've moved on from this. So you do have guys like in the Matrix who will bring it up because, I think that they look at it as like, oh, well, this is a proof that, that Q knew what he was talking about, that we were right all along, that Durham's going to, get scalps. I've seen that in a bunch of reporting. Technofog did a Substack post about it, and they're like, Durham's got another scalp. And it's like,
so basically, to summarize, Jake was right. 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 About Epstein, and he was right about everything.
No, this is just some like human shit. I think the indictment sort of reads like Igor Danchenko was. He wanted to help. He wanted to be, he wanted to have the clout. There's emails where he's going back and forth saying that he's working on a project against Trump. He's very pro-Clinton.
Is there any pleasure, Jake? Is there any trace of the old Jake that I remember? This is a Coached by Travis hologram.
This is nuanced, not optimistic.
Yeah, right. Not thinking
grounded.
The whole thing. I think having a bigger audience has sort of caused Jake to calm down a little bit, because before, when it was just you two, you weren't having people yelling at you on Twitter.
No.
It's a whole new ball game now. But no, It sounds like a real Burn After Reading situation. Again, the movie that really sort of defines our age.
Yeah.
Except not funny and so boring, and you have to learn like all these Russian names that you'll never use again.
I know.
So dumb.
The other story that made the news rounds was that Demi Lovato became an ambassador for the streaming service Gaia, which we talked about in the last premium episode. Of course, Gaia, the show that features resurrected movie stars from beyond and aliens and spiritual stuff, astral projection, all that fun stuff. So Lovato has always been kind of new agey. Lovato previously got into pilled programming when they hosted the UFO hunting show Unidentified. Lovato also has a fairly pilled podcast called 4D with Demi Lovato. Hasn't quite ascended to 5D yet, just 4D.
But it's getting there.
Yeah.
Especially especially if she's watching more Gaia.
You know that Demi's show, Unidentified, is on like Peacock. Like it's a huge mainstream.
Yep.
And at the same time, they're announcing that they're becoming a Gaia TV ambassador and launching a sex toy.
Yep.
The Demi wand.
The Debbie wand.
So there's a lot of things happening.
So here's the announcement that Lovato made on the partnership with Gaia to their 118 million followers.
Thrilled to be a We Are Gaia ambassador. Understanding the world around us, the known and the unknown, is so exciting to me. Check out my stories to learn more.
So, again, this is a really troubling development because, like, Gaia isn't just a fun, it's a streaming service to expand your consciousness. There are literal QAnon promoters doing talk shows. There's Pizzagate. There's false flag theories. There's also weird theosophical stuff. It's basically a pathway to radicalization, and like if you marinate in this content, then it could easily lead to someone to QAnon or something worse.
Did you know that obviously as part of being an ambassador, Demi Lovato drew up a list of shows that they enjoy, and one of them was one that claims that Atlantis is real. And the other one believes that there was a war between giants and reptilians in our history.
Yeah, giants is like a huge historical conspiracy theory, isn't it? I hadn't really realized how much so until I started doing a history podcast, and the amount of comments you get about giants are just insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of biblical theories. I mean, Mud Fossil is super into the giant men of old or whatever that they list in the Bible, and
Skyrim is super into giants.
Right.
But also, people who don't play Skyrim, but also just think that there used to walk people on Earth who walked among us who were like 12 feet tall.
The Titans.
Well, many people expect Canada to be a very polite and not insane country, collection of people.
Yes.
Oftentimes, that is very much so not the case. There was a recent poll done by Ledger, I believe, about conspiracy theory sentiment in Canada. Canada is different than America because the rate at which civic nationalism and belief in systems is degrading is much slower than America. But Canada also depends culturally on just entirely on American exports. So you have this problem of like, well, if you're a right-wing Canadian, you look at pilled stuff. That's the avenue you go on. And yet everyone around you is still at least relatively trusting of, let's say, the election, for instance. So this is from a CTV article about the poll. It reads, Ledger asked a series of questions related to the conspiracy mindset. The poll company found that 2 in 5 Canadians, 40%, considered it definitely or probably true that, quote, certain significant events have been the result of the activity of a small group that secretly manipulates world events. And you might think, like, that's sort of correct, right? A little bit, depending on how you sort of manipulate that quote.
Yeah, it depends if the small group has got like 3 brackets around them or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What is the small group? Is it the richest people in the world? If so, you are correct.
Yeah, it's a methodological issue. But another thing that's interesting from that article, almost 1 in 3 Canadians, 31%, believe that, quote, experiments involving new drugs or technologies are routinely carried out on the public without their knowledge or consent, while 17% believe that the government was, quote, covering up the link between vaccines and autism.
Man.
So those are a little, I mean, you could argue how the medical establishment have been like mistreating and like in certain instances forcibly sterilizing Indigenous people could apply to that 31%, which is again a methodological problem. But I think it demonstrates something, which is that Canadians generally get their media in a lot of ways from the same places that Americans do, which was an interesting contrast between at the start of the article, where it said that 78% of Canadians have strong confidence in institutions like election agency, 74% have confidence in the police, 54% in the mainstream media, and 56% in the provincial and federal governments. So I think that with the former statistics going up, especially as a result of sort of a cultural influence, the latter statistics will start to go down. And also just related to failures in public institutions that you also see in America,
Yeah, and also I think that a lot of these, especially when it comes to like, suddenly the medical questions and having them even in the same quiz or in the same poll as the others, everybody is seeing this through the lens of the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the classic anti-vax movement before pre-COVID, right? That was their main like rallying cry essentially was the vaccines and autism. 17% still strikes me as like quite significantly high though. Do you know? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I do feel like the word vaccine now, there's no way that people can think of it the way they thought of it before COVID. There has been like a big shift again backwards. And Annie's excellent podcast, the Vaccine Podcast, which I highly recommend, shows how like this stuff goes in cycles and it flares up with, unfortunately, deaths and the spread of these kinds of illnesses.
Because 78% of, I believe, the total Canadian population has gotten at least one jab, which is pretty high, relatively speaking. It's a very high sort of trust in medical institutions. So it's interesting, the 31% believe experiments involving new drugs or technologies are carried out on the public without their consent.
Yeah.
Like that's really most of that probably, does relate to the vaccines. So you have like a very polarized group. And I'm sure this is the case with most societies.
Interestingly, in Brazil, Bolsonaro, he, has openly said, I won't take the vaccine. He's, claimed that the vaccine would cause HIV and I don't know what. A lot of crazy stuff, but he's openly anti-vaccine, and yet the vaccination rate in Brazil is really high because it really doesn't matter what the leadership does. If anything, they should just do the opposite of what they want us to do at this point. It would overall encourage more people to do it. Joe Biden should go out there and be like, vaccine, you can kiss my ass if you think I'm taking a vaccine. And it would like save America.
As soon as it becomes like taking a vaccine to own the libs, 100% vaccination rate among adults, you've already...
Yeah.
Okay.
But also that has to do with the very robust Brazilian medical system, which is way freer at the point of access. And people have real trust in, despite, their lack of trust in their own government, which is, a big issue in Brazil, obviously.
Also, you could argue that Bolsonaro actually did lots of pro-vaccine propaganda before simply just by getting COVID like 50 times.
By looking like he's about to die every day. He is a billboard for the vaccine.
There's photos of him in the hospital just smiling when he's just dead.
The whole country's cigarette packs just have Bolsonaro on it with no explanation. Travis, do you have any last words before we black bag you and install Jake as the Russiagate wing of our new reporting group?
Yeah.
That's not fair. That's not fair to peg me as a
I will peg you when I
Russiagate.
please, Jake.
No, I denounce you.
Yeah, I agree. I denounce Julian as well.
Oh, you're both biting your thumbs at me. How interesting.
Does anyone else want to get in on this? Denouncing Julian.
I was very
denounce
reserved.
Julian. Yeah, I've been denouncing Julian.
Yeah, Travis was the
doing for
original Julian
years.
denouncer.
All right, I'll denounce Julian then.
As we all should, all should be. No, I was very metered in my.
I agree.
My yammering explanation.
No, listen. I am not kidding when I say. And I repeat, Jake was right, Jake was right, Jake was right, Jake was right.
Yeah, if you've listened to the show, you know one thing. I am always right.
Mm-hmm.
I will be starting my own Substack.
Yeah.
The arc of history is long, but it bends toward Jake.
Yes. But Travis, I mean, does the arc of history bend away from you? And do you just go, this is not ideal and continue onwards, because we live in Jake's world.
We do. No, what I no, of course, no. What I see is, the like the mass of people continue to refuse to believe we live in the universe that is composed solely of the void and violence, and so as a consequence of that, I will have plenty of material to work with for this podcast because they will. You take that refusal and construct insane narratives about the Washington Monument fucking the White House and and have a good meaning with that. Have purpose with that.
You have no debunk of the obelisk leaving its pedestal.
That's true. You know what? That one's true actually. The erect phallus of the Washington Monument absolutely does penetrate the supple White House. That happens every single day.
Right into Abraham Lincoln's mouth.
We need to listen to psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
It's what does the penis signify? What does this monument signify in relation to your father's penis?
You can search any podcast platform for what does the penis signify, and you'll find Liv Agar's podcast, which is Liv Agar, and involves some psychoanalysis of the listeners. I'm pretty sure you're just dishing out advice, right? Like a lot of it is just responding to people who are in crisis.
Yeah, handling their thoughts on their father's penis usually. I'm not. To be clear, that's not what the podcast is about.
No. What is your podcast? Tell us.
It's generally a politics and philosophy podcast. Go over current events, philosophy, how they apply. Sometimes talk about theorists.
Yeah, so go search Liv Agar online. You can find all that stuff, including the Patreon. And then, Annie, once again, plugging your podcast, The Vaccine Pod, which traces vaccines back to our previous panics and beyond, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's called Vaccine: The Human Story. You can find it on YouTube or any podcasting platform. And we actually have our episode coming out next week, which is about the original 19th century anti-vax movement. So you can all imagine just how much fun I had with that. I even played a little original anti-vax song from the Victorian drinking halls, which I really love. So yeah, go check it out.
Cool.
And of course, go follow the person who's always right at Real Rockatansky. We will be retiring the Travis View.
I would like to plug
handle.
I'm starting a Pornhub channel, and the first video is going to be a large erect monument. Large erect monument penetrates mature White House.
Yeah. Dominant Egyptian symbol subjugates White House. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the QAnon Anonymous podcast. You can go to patreon.com/QAnon Anonymous and subscribe for $5 a month. It'll get you a second episode every week, plus access to our entire archive of premium episodes. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It helps us stay advertising free and editorially independent. For everything else, we have a website. It's QAnonanonymous.com.
Listener, until next week. May the deep dish bless you and keep you.
That felt so awkward.
And Travis declined to participate.
Travis didn't even say anything. I'm pretty sure he was mumbling like he does in church.
It's not a conspiracy, it's fact.
And now, today's auto cue.
Just beyond the stormy night, where the darkness turns to light, waits a reckoning of wrong that will reveal we were right. Our battlefield is filled with ghosts. The cannons flood the air with lies and smoke. Oh, but those who listen through the fear will hear the trumpets battle